I'm so excited to have you here today because you are actually our season finale guest of season 1 of the VIP Collective. And what's really interesting and that what the audience should know is that we actually have a lot of things in common. Yeah, a little bit. And now that you're sitting across from me, it actually feels a bit weird. This is a little awkward. I was kind of surprised when you asked me because I knew that this would happen. We look alike. Yeah, this is weird. I don't know if I can do this. Let's call in someone else. I gotta call in someone else. We're bringing in the guest host. Okay.
Are we going?
We're rolling.
Okay, we're rolling.
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm going to address the audience because today's a special day.
Very special day.
Something different's happening.
Something different's happening. And I'm back.
And you're back.
Yes.
Which is very exciting.
Am I the first repeat?
You are the first repeat. High five. You knew that was coming, didn't you?
Knew it.
So I'm going to fill the audience in on the fact that at the end of the summer, we had a giveaway for a guest to be a host on one of our episodes. And lovely Ashley Pigott from Ashley Pigott Events is the grand winner of the guest host for the podcast.
Yay.
Yay.
Also the #1 fan.
And #1 fan.
Yes.
And we love you for that. So welcoming you back. And the whole flip of the story today is that I'm the guest.
You're the guest.
So we are talking video, we are talking podcast, and whatever else you have in store for me.
I have a whole list of questions
Oh,
for you.
Lord.
So I think every guest has probably asked you, well, who's going to interview you?
That has come up quite a bit.
Yes.
And I've been getting messages online saying, when are you going to tell your story?
Yes.
When are we going to get to know about video?
Yes. So
Here we
I, again, as your biggest fan, was really excited to win the contest.
Yay.
And have the opportunity to ask you some questions.
Well, I'm excited you're here.
So we spend so much time together on site, but so rarely ever have the opportunity to have like a real chat. So we know each other. We know each other for a long time.
No.
But we don't necessarily know as much that we would like to know personally about each other. And I have tons of questions about video and like how it all works and things like that. So let's start like way back. So let's talk about where it all started. Like where are you from?
Where am I from?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like are you from Toronto?
No.
Okay. So where are you from?
This is fun. So I am from a very small town.
Okay.
Population of about 500.
Okay. In
Yes.
Ontario?
In Ontario.
Okay.
And it's called Tamworth. Location being north of Napanee, Ontario, or Kingston, Ontario, for those of you who may not know the east very well.
I don't really go north of the 401 very often unless I'm going
No,
to
it's
Muskoka,
east.
So
Kingston.
still.
You've seen Kingston on the 401.
I've seen it on the map.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say Kingston. So it's about 2.5 hours from here.
Okay.
And so, yeah,
That's
small
not that
town.
far. Okay.
Small town, grew up on a dirt road. Grandmother was my neighbor.
Amazing.
That's how we got milk and sugar.
That's awesome. I love it.
Parents had to drive me everywhere because
Yes,
you
you
had
lived
to
in
have
the country.
you had to have a license
Yes.
to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm country girl,
Okay.
country roots.
So what brought you to Toronto?
So I went to school in Oshawa
Okay.
at Durham, and I took advertising there.
Interesting. I was just going to ask. Okay.
Yes, so it was advertising. And then through the progression over the years, I slowly went from Oshawa to Scarborough to Toronto, then to Dublin,
Okay.
then
Doubled
to,
back.
then to Vancouver,
Okay.
and then to Toronto.
All right.
So it's been a few different cities.
And have
and
you,
countries.
okay, so then you finished school in advertising and
Yes.
then, so tell me where did the
it
video
went.
thing, where did that piece come from?
The story begins in advertising. So mostly the program was focused on a lot of print advertising.
Right.
But there was a portion where we got to develop a television commercial.
Okay. That's cool.
Yes.
So that was your first dabble.
That was the first dabble.
Like, were you into it as a kid as well? Or was it really once you got into like post-secondary that you really started to find that?
So we had a camera in our family when I was in public school, and we created home movies with my grandmother.
Okay.
And it's funny because now looking back at those movies, they were actually really well done considering we had no idea what we were doing.
Okay.
But a massive shout out goes to my brother because he was actually doing the directing of like what shot's going to be next because we
Amazing.
couldn't edit then, right?
Right, of course.
It was all in camera.
You cut
thinking
and then you
ahead.
set up the next
Yes.
shot. Yeah, of course.
So now that I watch it, I'm like, oh my God, this is really good.
Is he in the world of video?
He's not.
No.
He's
Okay.
a teacher.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, then that's also a nice
So
little...
yeah,
Okay.
segue.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, I mean, we developed a commercial in the advertising course, and I was sitting because we were supposed to shoot and edit it. So I was editing this commercial, and it sounds really corny, but I actually had like butterflies.
Really?
Yes. And I remember the feeling.
That's the beginning of
And
a passion.
It was. And I was like, I really like this. Like we were going frame by frame.
Yeah.
We were deciding which angle was going to tell the right story and when the angle
What was the
should
commercial
appear.
about?
Oh my goodness. It was about Glad kitchen bags.
Did you get to pick it, or did like the teacher assign this is what your commercial is going to be
I
about?
feel like we chose it.
Okay. Okay.
Who knows why?
No judging.
Yeah, no judgment on that. But yeah, I think we chose that. It was really funny.
Do you still have it?
We don't.
Okay. I
I
was
think
going to
I got
say,
it.
you should give these
It should be in the
guys-
Hall of Fame.
Yeah, well, and these
obviously,
guys should
at
have a
Durham
little
College.
tidbit of it. It should be
Right?
like a little teaser in.
It'd be so funny.
Okay.
Yeah, so I kind of had this little like ting of excitement, and then I left it. Like graduated,
Okay.
and I ended up getting.
And you thought you were going to go into advertising.
Yeah.
Okay.
So advertising was the plan, and I ended up getting an internship at Live Nation.
Oh, cool.
At the Molson Amphitheater. So I worked there in sponsorship for a year and a half. And got to see, I think it was like over 70 concerts at the amphitheater. So I had some pretty exciting summers.
And this is all before you went on the world tour of Corinne McDonald. Okay, got it.
So one morning I had woken up like when I was working with Live Nation, and I was literally, and I remember this, I have a lot of moments that I remember, kind of darky like that, but I was standing in my apartment.
Great for the podcast.
And I was like, I said out loud, I was like, I want to have an editing studio one day. This is in 2008.
Okay.
I don't even think I had edited since that commercial.
Okay.
But I had graduated within like a year.
Yeah.
So the time frame, so it was still there.
It's fresh.
It was fresh. And I said, I want to have an editing studio one day. And then I just...
Why an editing studio? Not like, I want to be a videographer.
Because editing, I loved the
That
storytelling.
part of it.
Okay. It was the thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, and they kind of go hand in hand because you need the footage. But, you know, so, yeah. So then I was kind of shoved that off, went to work. Then I decided to buy a one-way ticket and move to Dublin on a 1-year visa. Okay. So I went there. I worked in hospitality while I was there at a hotel, which was fun and interesting.
Yes.
Props to Ireland.
Yes.
I'm excited, and I really want to go back there for
You
a wedding.
fit in
but I've
perfectly
been
with your red hair.
Oh my goodness! Everyone would come up to me on the
you
street. Irish background.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
People would come up to me on the street, and they were American or Canadian, and they were so excited because they thought that I was going to have the accent.
Yes.
And I like, even if they weren't lost, they were trying to ask me for directions. So
they
everybody was asking me for directions, and then I would turn around and start speaking like with my Canadian accent, and they looked so disappointed. They were like, "Oh, this sucks."
She was a true ginge.
I thought she was the real
really
deal.
got her hopes up.
And I couldn't fake the accent, or I would have to try and like,
that would have been amazing.
you know. But
Needed footage of that.
I just didn't have it. After a few drinks, I could fake it, but then it was.
It sounds good in your mind after a few drinks.
Exactly. Not so much. So then I had come back to Kingston after that. So I had moved home.
Okay.
2 of my friends were getting married.
Okay.
And I always had the video camera.
Okay.
So I was the gal that they called on.
Yeah.
Right? The friends.
Yeah.
So I filmed.
No expectations. We just want some footage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which was great.
Yeah.
So
good experience.
I went out and I shot both of their weddings. Had no idea what I was doing. Like, I was just shooting for the love of shooting.
Yeah. Just getting what you could.
Just getting
what you thought was going to be good.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And so there was one part where I was up on like a balcony and I was filming down of the girls getting ready, and then I was filming the champagne, and no one had told me what to do. I was just doing it instinctively. Right. And then I had that butterfly feeling again. And I was like, I like this. I really did. So after that, a couple of those weddings, I didn't edit them. It was kind of like, here's your burned CDs with all of
my
the
raw footage.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is pretty funny. And so I was talking to a friend on the phone. I had been working in hospitality in Kingston.
Right.
And I was talking to a friend on the phone named Carolyn, who was working with Wedlocks at the time.
I know Carolyn.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I said to her, I was in this like position of, what am I going to do with my life? I'm in hospitality. I think I found something.
This was like early 20s, mid 20s?
Age-wise?
Yeah.
This would have been in 2010.
Okay.
So
not that long ago.
Not that long ago. Mid-20s, yeah. and said, I think I found a passion, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I don't know how to do anything with it. And I was living in Kingston at the time. It's not like there's a big wedding industry per se there. Like people obviously getting married. But so I said to her, I think I'm going to go to school for film. Next step. Because if you figure out you like something, you may as well go to school.
Learn about it.
Become
an expert in it.
Exactly. So she was like, oh, that's good. Gets off the phone. And she must have she did have a conversation with the owners of Wedlux and Cloud9 Creative, which is Angela and Bruce. And at the time, Bruce was looking for somebody to both edit and film weddings. Good timing. Good timing indeed.
Right place, right time.
So she called me the next day, and I was actually working at the hotel. And I remember taking the phone call. She said, if you're willing to move to Vancouver next week.
Oh, that's right, because they would have still been based on the West Coast.
They were based on the West Coast.
Got it. Okay.
Yes. She said, if you're willing to move to Vancouver next week, Bruce will have you on to shoot and edit. Awesome. And so, of course, I'm sitting there excited.
Well, because Bruce, one of the best in the biz, right?
Correct.
That's like a shining opportunity in front of you at that point, right? Especially like with no real major professional experience, right? Like that's amazing.
So he's throwing a massive chance at me.
Yeah.
And so of course I'm excited, and I go home and I get an email from him, which is an official offer.
Did you say yes right away when you were on the phone with her? Or were you like, I don't even know, am I ready to move? Or were you like, I'm coming, I'll be there?
Well, it's one of those things. So I was mid-20s, I was living at home.
Right.
I get this offer, I'm away, and I'm like, I got to think about it, of course. And I also wanted to talk about it with my parents.
Of course.
So I get home, and he's written me an official email letter with an offer saying if you're willing to come, because I think it was a Monday, and he wanted me to start the following Monday. So he wanted me to fly out on the Sunday. So it was like very fast. Wow. So I go home, and I'm telling my mother, and it must have been maybe 2 days before. And this is a part of the story that I haven't told a lot of people.
Well, you're going to tell a bunch of people now.
People are now going to learn. It was probably 2 days prior, like a week prior, that I had learned that my father had stage 4 cancer.
Oh, my goodness.
So I was in this position of, you just found out your father had cancer, and you've been offered a job across the country.
Yeah. Do I leave? Is this the time to leave my family?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was with my mother in the bedroom, and I was like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Like, am I doing this?
Yeah.
Like, am I leaving everyone? Yeah. And she's like, you have to.
Yeah.
And we all knew that I had to, because I had the passion.
Yeah.
And he was in the position where he was still okay. He had to obviously be monitored and that kind of thing. So I did it. Amazing. And I was really fortunate because Bruce was really great to let me take the time I needed to come back and be with family and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So that was good.
That's good.
So I didn't miss any major parts, any surgeries. I was always back.
How is he now?
He passed.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. Yes. So he passed in 2015.
Were you back?
I was.
By then? Okay.
So the next progression of the story is that I had moved to Vancouver, and then in 2015, it was time to do the venture. Right. So that kind of launched into the Corinne McDonald Films.
Yes. Okay. So that's great. I want to talk all things this. Yeah. Okay. So you made the decision. Business starts. Yes. So, okay, let's talk about starting a videography business. Because I know nothing of this. There's equipment, there's all kinds of things that you need to do this. Mm-hmm. So what was your first thing? What's the first thing you did?
So the first thing I did was
gear up.
You know what? It is.
Okay.
In a sense, it is the first thing, because you need the equipment to make the product. One of my first tasks was actually reaching out to everybody that I had met in the industry. Networking. So I was blessed being able to work with such high caliber and talented teams that I reached out to them and said, hey, this is what I'm doing now. If you happen to know anyone, just reaching out, networking, that kind of thing. Yeah. So that was step number 1, and then getting gear. Yeah. So getting gear.
Let's talk about gear, because I know nothing. That's a world I don't know anything about. I don't speak the technical language. Yeah. It's not really my thing, but I'm curious. It's a big investment, right? It's especially as a business at the beginning stages. You no longer have an income, steady income. It's all a big change, and then with that, you also need to invest in not just the cameras, but all of the editing equipment and things like that. Again, I don't know what those are, but I'm sure
you're on the right track.
You're on the right track. So what did that look like for you? And did you hire staff right away? What did that process look like for you?
So to begin, first I had reached out to a lot of the planners that I'd been working with when I was with them.
Yeah.
You included.
Yes, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After the networking portion, I'd reached out to some key players in my story,
Yes.
which are the ladies from Spectacular Spectacular.
Love those
Melissa
ladies.
Haggerty and Gabby Armenia.
Love those ladies.
Love those
They're the
ladies.
best. Yeah.
So it was really interesting because they played a pretty big role. When I had reached out to them, they said, let's go for dinner. We want to talk to you. And she said, you know, we're really excited for you. We believe in you. And we want to support you. And hearing that was pretty amazing, first of all.
Yeah.
Like these women have so many years in the business.
Yeah.
And
So
they
much
saw something in
experience.
me and skill set and personality, and they wanted to help me. So with that, I think with them, a lot of their clients place so much trust in them, like so much trust
Yeah.
that if they are to say, this is who I think we should hire, a lot of times their clients are going, then we trust you.
Right.
Let's do it.
Build the dream team. We hired you to build the dream team.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
They build a pretty epic dream team.
They do.
Right?
They do.
Yeah.
They built the dream team.
Yeah.
And it was after that they were pretty much responsible for, I would say, half of our season the following year.
So that would be your 2016 season.
That would be the
Got it.
2016 season.
Okay.
So we were working with a lot of their clients and working with them a lot, and provided the opportunity to travel a little bit. And it really gave us a portfolio, because I think what people need to realize, and I think this happens a lot with anybody who works in a studio, is that if you're an artist working in a studio, you're not granted the opportunity to take your images or take your footage when you leave.
Absolutely.
So if you
You
decide
start with no portfolio.
you start with no
You've
portfolio.
Got nothing. Yeah.
And fair enough, because they're hiring the studio, not the artist. And so that is under their umbrella.
Yeah.
So
totally.
when the day I walked out of Cloud9 was the day I had 0 in the portfolio.
Cameras were blank.
Cameras were blank.
Yeah.
And so I had to take it on to and that's where like the passion part came in, because I had to take it on myself to start creating things.
Yeah.
So in the summer, and this is a bit of a side note, but like in the summers, I would go down every long weekend and I would film the buskers, and I'd film the CNE,
cool.
and I'd make
Okay.
my own content. Like it wasn't wedding per se,
Yeah.
but I was obsessed with actually telling stories.
Well, and it allows you the opportunity to continue to practice your craft, right? And to
Exactly.
get better, like whether it's a wedding or not, it's still, you're still in it, you're still filming, you're still seeing the world from the eyes of your camera,
Yeah.
and then taking it back and editing it. So it just allows you to continue to
Yeah.
practice.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And the obsession for me, so there's two things that I get obsessed with. One is music. So
Oh yeah. Yes, I know that about you.
if I hear a song that I know will fit really well with an edit, like I may shoot with the song already in mind so that I can create something. And two is just the entertainment factor for the audience. So I'm obsessed with doing something fun for people to watch.
Yes.
Which kind of ties into the podcast,
Yeah.
and like we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what drives me, is that I get to create something fun. So I can't, like sometimes I'm so excited to share it that maybe it even goes out too early.
Right. Okay.
But at the same time, I'm like, no, this is so fun. And
You
like,
love it.
There's edits that I watch from 2016 that I'll still kind of dance to, because the song is what triggers like the fun and the emotion of it.
Yeah.
And like, I just had so much fun doing it.
Well,
So,
music can transcend you to different times and
Yeah.
places and feelings. And so it's such a huge part of the visual of a video as well.
Exactly.
So
So then going back to the question basically was that I had worked a lot with Melissa, so I was portfolio building at that point.
Right.
And I was just so lucky and thankful that her clients were allowing me the opportunity to go forward with their wedding. So the team didn't come first. The gear came first,
Okay.
as mentioned. And so the cost to entry into video is quite high.
It's high.
It's very high.
Good video needs good equipment, right? Like you.
It does. I mean, the saying goes, if you're an artist, you can kind of tell any story with a camera.
Okay.
But at the same time, you also need the right equipment that's going to give you the right shots.
Right. Exactly.
There's
Okay.
low light issues.
Right.
There's all that kind of stuff. So, like, if anyone was starting
There's
out,
just no Photoshop in
there's
video.
just no.
I've asked.
Yeah, yeah. That doesn't
There's-
happen.
No, it doesn't exist.
There's things you can do, but I mean, the time that it takes to do that.
Yeah.
And I think, and that jumps into like the luxury market, is just you really have to know your frame ahead of your shot. And if you're going to be filming things with a dirty background
Right.
or with water bottles
Right.
and then you get it in after, everybody's looking, everybody can see that.
Well, the industry for sure is. Yeah. Not everybody will notice
No, not
the
everybody.
details, but yes, people will notice it.
Exactly.
And you'll go back and kick yourself being like, why didn't I see that? So you do. I've been on site with you, and you're kind of stealth mode, which is great, right? Because video, I find, find, we were laughing earlier that we kind of forget about you guys. Like we get the shot, we get it set up, we get the shot, and then we're like, okay, we're done. No, hold on, video needs to get it. But you do, like you really do take a lot of time to think about your shot, and I've seen you in action on that, and I think that plays into the final product of your videos and why they're so amazing. So this leads into a couple more questions that I have for you. Okay. That are business related, but questions about like when you shoot a wedding, do you go in, you've met the couple, you've talked to the couple, do you go in with like a song in mind, or when you shoot it, do you kind of already know what this end edit might already look like as you're shooting it? Because I feel like your mind probably works that way, right? Where you're thinking forward of what that's going to look like in an edit. Is that how it plays out, or do you just shoot hours and hours of footage and then review it and kind of be like, okay, this is how the story is going to go?
So good question. To start, some clients we don't actually meet with. Okay. So some we're fortunate to meet with, and some don't have time, or it's happening in a different location and we're not able to.
And it's just a phone call.
It's just a phone call. Okay. Yeah. So it kind of depends in that sense. In the shooting and editing perspective, a lot of times we don't go in with songs in mind, so we're not editing to a song. Right. That comes in the post-production.
That can be restrictive, right? When you're thinking like
it can, and maybe a song doesn't work. And I think the biggest thing about knowing how to edit and being a strong editor is knowing what song flows well. So like you may have this song in mind that's super upbeat, but then the day turns out really emotional. Right. And it's like it's that song is not going to give the viewer the emotion that we felt, that they felt that day. So it doesn't match. So I personally don't do that. Okay. I don't have the girls do that.
What about a same day edit?
Same day edit.
Because that's like a different beast, right?
That is correct. That is a different beast. So with the same day edit, typically we do have songs in mind before our same day edit. Okay. Yes. Okay. Good question.
You have something to give you some sort of basis. A same day edit is, I think, of probably a very difficult task to edit a little mini movie in the middle of a wedding, which is a high stress, high pressure day. Like we don't even have 5 seconds to like say, oh, how you doing? How are you? We don't have the luxury of that time. So to be able to sit down and actually create like a mini movie of their day, it's a lot. It's a lot. So I feel like there's got to be some sort of pre-planning that goes into that.
For sure. Yeah. There is. Yeah. And there may be, depending on, I like to chat with the couple and say like, okay, is there going to be a special car that you're arriving in? Or is there anything special we should know? Because then I can plan out shots based on something that might be happening. Right. A lot of times we shoot not storyboarded, so we're not storyboarding before we get there. There's nothing like that. It's having the ability, and I think this is a strong suit for myself, is that when you edit first, or when you learn to edit first, and then you learn to shoot, you're editing as you shoot. Right. So you know that you need a shot of grandmother, or that you need a shot of mom crying, or you're watching that mom's crying, or like you're being aware. It's about being hyper aware and not always constantly focusing on the couple. Right. Right. The video is for the couple. In a sense.
Yeah. It's also for the whole family, but too. It's for the family. And the generations to come.
And it's a little bit more for the generations to come, in my opinion. Yeah. So it's nice to always have eyes and ears on what's happening around. And if something special happens, it might go into the edit. Right. So we're not going in with a storyboarded, I'm not going to shoot that because it isn't going to work in the edit. Right. We're going in with, I might shoot that because that could be a really cute moment.
Could be, and we don't even know about it.
They don't. Yeah. And plus they may not see it. If the couple doesn't see the moment because they're doing photos or whatever, we have that kind of
You've
stuff.
captured it. And you normally have at least one other shooter with you, sometimes two. I guess potentially depending on the logistics and whether there's the same day edit, it could be even more.
Yeah, so we typically go out 2 minimum. Yeah. And 3 is typically our maximum. Okay. And we have an editor on staff for same day edits.
Same day edits, who sits in the back with a little desk.
Who sits in the back.
And just quiet with the headphones on. Like, don't talk to me.
Yes. I used to do same day edits with Cloud9, and I would sit in the car, and I would sit in Starbucks. And depending on where you're located, because you may have like 5 locations after a ceremony, and you've got to be run and gun, and you've got to be editing.
But that person doesn't shoot. They are just editing?
So for our team specifically, we have an editor. Okay. And then we have 3 other filmmakers.
So 2, potentially 3 people could be like 30 to 40 hours of footage in total, because if you're each shooting for like a 10 to 12 hour day.
Well, actually. So we don't shoot consecutively for 10 hours. And this is a confusion.
Feels like it.
It does feel like
Feels
it.
like it.
It feels like it. And I think this is a confusion where people expect their raw footage is going to be 10 hours. But
right.
in the end of the day, the raw footage is typically 3 hours max.
Okay.
2 to 3
That's
hours
good to
because
know.
we're shooting cinematically. So we're shooting clips. We're not shooting long form. So we're not going to set up a cocktail hour, hit record, and walk away from a camera. And
Ceremony.
Ceremony we do.
Probably the only, or speeches would probably be the only
Yes.
like
Long
steady
form.
long form.
Long
That's
form.
a new term. Okay.
Those are
I've learned.
the long form
Got it.
edits that we do where
Okay.
you could sit and you can watch your chapter marker as if you're watching your ceremony as a guest.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then all of that footage
Mm-hmm.
comes back, and then like where do you even
Magic.
start?
The
Do you like
magic
watch
begins.
all the raw footage from start to finish
Yes.
first, and then build that story? Like talk me through that process?
Yeah, you pretty much have to. I mean, for our process, and again, this is just for us.
Yeah, but
It's hard to
this
say.
is you.
It's
This
hard to
is you.
say
Yeah,
how
this
other
is
people
all-
operate, but
yeah.
yeah, I mean, the process is that you're going to be watching through all of the footage, and you're going to be listening through all the speeches. So after the wedding day is over, I think it's important that people remember there's a whole post-production side of it where we are reliving your entire day for up to 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
So that's the time it takes us to craft a story,
Right.
listen to the narrative of the speeches, decide what footage makes sense to go over that, pair the music that's going to have the right hitting points to bring the right emotion. We do reviews. So once it's exported, we sit down, watch it on a television away from the computer.
Right.
Because you need to remove yourself from
New
your
perspective.
elements.
Yeah.
You've got to watch it as if you're a viewer, make some popcorn, whatever. And then you're going to watch it and you're going to critique it from there, and you're going to go back to the drawing board.
Okay.
So it's a process that goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And the reason that we do that because we operate more as a boutique studio. So we don't take on necessarily 50, 60 weddings a year. Yeah. We're taking on 20 to 30 weddings, which we're crafting very meticulously. Yeah. And so it's harder to take on more because of the effort we put into each one.
And when you say we, so you've touched on we a couple of times.
Yes.
So talk to me a little bit about
Team love.
the team. Yeah. So who is we in the Corinne McDonald Films world?
So right now we have Joanne on staff, and Joanne is working on our feature films and our short films, our wedding films, and
so an editor.
An editor.
Okay.
Yes, sorry, an editor. We have another editor, Emily, who is our same day editor.
Okay.
Who's just had 2 little babies.
Oh.
Emily's
she's tired.
She's tired. She's busy. And then we have a shooting staff of up to 7 of us on staff, and we never take 7 people on a wedding day. But within that pool, I'm usually pulling the guys to come and work with me based on the wedding.
And those are like subcontractors that you're hiring in.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So otherwise, it's really an all lady crew.
A lot of ladies.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like the core.
Yep. The editing staff and storytelling crew.
That's cool.
Those ladies.
Because you don't see a lot of women, I don't think,
Yeah.
in this category of the wedding market.
I always say we're rare, but we're there.
Okay, so I want to touch back on costs then, because you mentioned like there's a difference in costs and things like that. So I'm really curious because obviously in my role, we are dealing with the budgeting and like we're seeing basically where all of the money of the wedding is being spent. And I do find, to be honest, like video gets some pushback, and I don't know that everyone sees as much value in it as they should. And speaking from experience as someone who didn't have video, I tell every client to get video because it is my biggest regret. But let's talk a little bit about like, what does video cost? Like what type of packages, like what should people be putting value into when it comes to cinematography?
Well done.
Yeah.
I think it really depends on what the couple wants to have as a long term.
Right.
It's more about putting it in a different light, which is the perspective of what video can bring down the road. Yeah. So the idea is down the road, you're going to have this piece of art, essentially.
Yeah, of course.
Or documentary footage or whatever that your kids are going to be able to watch. And I mean, going back to even the fact that my parents were married when they were like 20, 21.
Do they have a video?
So my uncle, my great uncle, I should say.
He shot it?
He was the man with the
Amazing.
shoulder camera.
I love it.
And so he shot it, and that tape has now gone. We don't have it.
Oh.
But what I would give to be able to watch that again.
And I tell every client that now I have 2 little girls, and like my oldest is like all about princess, like to be able to put on, our wedding video and show her like mommy dressed as a princess and daddy like all dolled up. And like, you know, it is 100% my biggest regret is not having video. And at the time it was very much, you know, I'm going to invest in a great photographer. We were paying for our own wedding. I wasn't in the industry at that point. You know, you didn't necessarily have as many friends to call and things like that. And I just was like, you know what, this is our budget. A good photographer is like worth its weight in gold, and that's where we're just going to have to put our money. And I tell every single client I have, it's worth keeping the discussion open because they will regret it. Here I am 10 years later, and it's 100% something I regret, and you can never go back. Yeah. And it was also at a time where it wasn't a video culture. So there's like little iPhone snippets that like my brother-in-law has of me walking down the aisle, but that's it. Yeah. Right. So let's go back to talking about kind of the process. So a couple calls, they book, they've signed on, they're part of the Corinne McDonald Films family.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! They're very smart people. What would you say is like the most common package or offering that you put out that people go for? Like what do they sign up for most of the time in terms of hours and like deliverables and that kind of thing?
It really depends. So a lot of our films, we work in a number of different markets, and a lot of our hours are dictated by ceremony times.
Totally.
So if your ceremony is going to be at noon, then your hours are going to have to start earlier. If your ceremony is going to be at 5, you can probably live in a 10-hour package. Okay. So we keep it fairly simple, because I think what's super overwhelming is if you're a bride and you get back, you know,
the menu of options.
The menu of like 5 pages, and you're going, well, and especially when you don't know what anything means in video.
Totally. So which like, most of us don't.
And you don't. Like I wouldn't know unless I was in this industry.
I know how to do an Insta story, and that's like a bad.
It's safe.
Yeah. Sometimes. Then you don't. And you're like, oh.
Or sometimes your finger is too big.
Yes.
Mine specifically, but I'll hit the X instead, and you lose it.
Totally.
That's a really frustrating moment. Instagram needs to work on that.
They do.
So there's 2 packages, keeping it simple.
Okay.
We can do 10 hours or 12 hours.
Okay.
And it's either a 10-minute film or a 15 to 18-minute film.
Okay.
So 15 to 18 is our longest.
Okay.
The whole idea with us is we want to create something that you're super proud of.
Yeah.
We want you to like call up your friends and be like, yo, it's film time. Yeah. If that's how you speak, bro. Yeah. Whatever your lingo is. And have a party and have people over. Right. And it's 15 minutes because back in the day, it was documentary style, which was 2 hours, 3 hours, because we didn't edit, or they didn't edit back then.
Like who has?
Like it wasn't about that. It was exactly. No. So it's.
But 20 minutes you'll throw on.
20 minutes you can
every
throw
year
on
on your anniversary. You can like put it on. It's not like you're not like setting aside a half a day.
Exactly to watch it. Right. So I feel like those are kind of the 2 main packages. So.
You find that people will sign on and say, okay, I'm going to do the 10-minute film. And then afterwards they've had such an incredible day and they feel like, how are you going to fit that into 10 minutes? Let's upgrade the package and go with more time. Or do you sometimes go through the editing and you're like, you guys should really consider adding more time because there's some great footage that I'd love to include. Like, does that discussion happen?
So yes to the first part where a lot of people will, I've had brides as I'm leaving say we want to upgrade.
Yeah,
because they've had the experience of the day and now they understand that they're going to need more time and 10 minutes just seems too short. Yeah. But not so much saying we have all this great footage, you should upgrade. Okay. It's more if they feel happy with the product, then I'm happy. Okay. Happy customer, happy Corinne. Totally. Okay. It's your new hashtag.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then post-production time. Like how long does it take to edit? Like you said, it's like a lot of back and forth.
It is.
How long does it take to edit all of those hours of footage?
So when we're working with weddings specifically, a 10 to 15 minute film can take up to 3 weeks in the sense of back and forth between what works.
And that's like working on nothing else but 3 weeks, but that for 3 weeks? Pretty much?
Pretty much, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you're going to get like a 2 to 3 week period that's just intensive rewatching footage, listening, choosing music. Music can take a day sometimes.
Totally.
It's very...
Especially for you,
particular
because you're so into it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, that can be the time frame. But I think it's like the behind the scenes and same with planning. Yeah. Like nobody sees the hours that you put into planning. Yeah. They just show up at the event and it's done. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
And they see the finished video and they're like, oh, it's amazing. Right. 10 minutes. That didn't take long.
Exactly. And I think a lot of the costs associated with it, like this is probably one of the hardest barrier to entry of the market because you have to have up to $40,000 in equipment. Like you might be running 3 to 4 cameras. You may have a drone, you may have a gimbal, you may have
What's the gimbal again?
The gimbal is the tool that allows you to walk and let your...
And the camera does it so that you don't get motion sickness.
So you don't get sick.
Got it.
And you don't see the like walking steps kind of thing. It's like the floating shot.
Okay.
Which is the best.
A new technical term I've learned. Okay.
So what was the question? What am I talking about?
Barrier to entry.
So yeah, you're looking at like 40,000.
Yeah.
As an upfront cost.
Yeah.
So when we send out pricing, and it might be 5,000 or 6,000 for a wedding film.
Right.
When your videographer showing up with up to 40,000 in gear, I mean, there is a reason that the cost, and actually the cost can be lower than photo. Right?
Yeah.
And photo doesn't actually have a lot of gear. They have their cameras, they have their lenses.
Yeah.
And what you're paying for with photos, you're paying for the talent, and you're paying for a creative director who's able to work with your family and wrangle your family for photos and understand how to work with people. Whereas with video, you're paying a lot for the entry cost of what we need in order to make you your film.
Right.
And then on the back end, we're going to spend 2 to 3 weeks in post-production.
Right.
Actually
a lot of time.
through it. So there's a lot of time. I think a lot of people don't see that, but it's important to know, like even sometimes when we get requests to come out for a 1-minute video or in like the corporate world, it's just a minute. It's just a minute video, and that word "just" needs to be stricken.
Right, because it's never just anything.
It's not. I mean, it depends if you're...
It's just a lot of work.
It's just a lot of work, right? Like if you are a storyteller, it's never just.
Right.
If you just want just a shot on a timeline with some music, that's going to be your fast edit. But if like there was an event we worked on last year, and it was a minute. It took me 2 days to edit. And I was actually mixing 3 songs together within a minute. Okay. Mixing
that's
songs,
hard.
understanding beats.
So you're like a DJ too.
It is a DJ, and that's kind of why I love it.
You love it.
I am not even kidding
where
you.
the gold
There's
came from. Got it.
Very important.
Yeah.
There's a portion of like DJing that goes into it. You need to understand your beats.
Yeah.
You need to know when to cut beats. And the whole purpose of editing is keeping your audience entertained.
Yeah. Engaged.
That's what it's about.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. But it took up to 2 days to do just a 1-minute clip.
Right.
So to say it's just a 1-minute clip and then to associate a smaller dollar amount with that is not true. Like it's not fair in a sense because it's not just anything.
Well, and it is an area, that I think people they're not educated on what the process is. And I think that's part of where people find it difficult to see value in spending. And I think it's not just video. I think there's a lot of categories within wedding planning that people feel they don't understand. Why does that cost what it costs? And, there are so many reasons why things cost what they cost.
And that's why I wanted to do the podcast too.
Yes.
Because I wanted to kind of start shedding light on that. So it makes more sense for people who are either getting married or if they're in the industry and they're asking for video rates, and then they look at the video rates and they get a sticker shock.
Right.
And like, I thought this was going to be $1,000.
Right.
And like, I'm so sorry, but it's not even humanly possible to do a video for $1,000.
Right. Right.
I think there's 3 different segments of budget that work in the market right now. And I think it's 1,000 to 3,000 is a lower end cost. Then you have a mid range, which is 3 to 5 typically. And then you have a higher range, which is 5 to 10. I think those are your 3 different budgets that work within video, and it just depends on but it's hard to have a $5,000 expectation of a $1,000 videographer.
Totally.
If you're being charged $1,000, it's probably because they're working on portfolio building. Because
champagne taste beer budget.
Exactly. Champagne taste beer budget.
It's common. It's common. It's also, again, especially if it's the first time somebody's ever been married, or someone in their family first time, they're going into the process totally blind. They have no idea. So the sticker shock, I mean, I see it on my side because I'm usually the first line of defense of like the whole industry for that client. And, we put together initial budgets, or we have initial discussions on like what things cost. The world of Instagram, oh, I love this wedding. Like, what do you think that costs? And it's like, realistic numbers through experience, you can share that with them. And a lot of people do have that, oh my goodness, what?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot that goes into it. And again, just sort of circling back on it, it was something that I wholeheartedly regret not doing it. And we've talked about like the generations to come. And that really is what plays into my mindset on that. So I do think if you don't have video, you need video. and you're not trying to like win an Oscar with your wedding video. It doesn't have to be the
Well, I am
$10,000 package. Well, yeah, of course you are. But like from a client perspective, like
No,
if it's not within your budget to get, you know, the top package, then get the 10-minute package. Like get something because you will regret it later. For sure.
I don't know. I agree. Are you taking videos now of your kids?
I take as much as I can. I find, it sounds really bad, but my saved Insta stories are like gold because there are these little clips that I get to capture and then they're saved on my phone. But with my first, I didn't take as many videos as I wish that I had. So with the second one, I'm kind of like, just get out of my face. Phone. But time goes by so fast, and you know they're going to be 16 one day, and I'm going to reference some super cute thing they used to do when they were little. And technology is only going to advance, and I think video is only going to become more and more
relevant,
like top of mind. Like people, it's Instagram, it's stories, it's Snapchat, TikTok, right? Like all of that. It's not really static photo as much. And I think that that's just going to continue to grow. So for them and kind of when they get older, it's not going to necessarily be, you know, the slideshow of photos of like when they were little. It's going to be videos of them doing things together. So I think it's important to capture as much as possible, which I know you are on side with. Okay, so I want to talk about the podcast.
Okay, let's do it.
So as your first guest, I'm so curious to know. I mean, I obviously a super fangirl. Wednesday mornings, it's my jam. I really look forward to it. I count down.
I love that, and I appreciate you, and I love hearing that.
I love it.
I'm
I listen.
So
I'm a listener
yes.
Because I live in my car. Or as I told you this morning, I listen Wednesday mornings at the gym. That's like my ritual. So I'm curious, like since you started, what made you want to start the podcast? Like what brought this on? What was the aha moment?
The moment?
Yeah. Because you have moments, you said.
I do have moments.
Yeah. So what was that moment for
And they're the moments that I listen.
Yeah.
And I recognize. And it must be like the butterfly effect.
It's the universe telling you something.
And it's universe, of course.
It's
and
telling
I listen.
you. Yeah,
and
listen.
I act accordingly.
Good. Fall in line.
Fall in line. The podcast was born in May of 2019, as it says in the profile. I want to educate, inspire. So a lot of the guests that have been on have taken the leap of starting their own business or left a business or they have families and they're doing their own thing.
Yep.
And if this can inspire someone to do their own thing because they really want to, but they haven't been able to pull the trigger yet, then I love that.
Right.
And that's what I want to do. So it's more of a give back program than it is anything else. So it was really born out of the need to be able to share stories from the vendors I work with.
Yep.
So a lot of the guests that have been on are some of the people that I work with the most. And what I want to do is give back. So in that way, it's a give back for you guys to be able to share your stories. And I love meeting people and chatting with people. And I love entertaining. So it's all kind of just fallen into one. And I get to be creative. I get to do my own type of storytelling with it. And it's a lot of fun. So this whole venture has been eye-opening, number one.
Right.
And I get to learn about the industry because, I mean, I'm in the video portion of it.
Well, and like we said, you have so few opportunities to actually talk to vendors on site at a wedding, right?
Yeah.
Like it's vendor meal, which is shoveling food in between a speech, or like very few small moments throughout the day. So you can never have like a real, like we could never do what we're doing right now.
You never get like that real sense of like conversation.
And like to know, I didn't know you grew up in a town of 500 people.
Exactly.
I would never have known that otherwise.
Nobody knows that.
I've never known no time to ask you that question on site.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
I'd be worried if that was the first thing you asked me when I saw you on site.
Hi, where are you from? Awkward.
Where did you grow up? So yeah, in that sense, it's really become more of like a passion project and a give back, and also to give some value to the audience about the industry and for them to understand what it's like from a video perspective and understand what the planners go through, and like I love hot tips. Hot tips for them to know if they are going to take on their own wedding themselves. Right. So it's kind of a channel and a full scale for everybody to just learn and grow together and support each other. I love having everyone here.
You know what? Honestly, everyone I talk to, because I'm your biggest fan and I talk about it with everybody, and the feedback I get is so like everybody just loves it. It's really, I think, bringing or uniting our community together, which is really nice and I think just so needed. But what kind of feedback have you gotten from
the same?
Like,
I'm getting feedback saying that this is the ritual, much like you. people are asking for other people within the industry and whether they've been on the show yet.
Yeah.
So in that sense, people are looking forward to the following week, which I love.
Wedding Wednesday.
Wedding Wednesday. And I think that like this all started, and of course, like once I found the mics and I ordered them, it was like game on.
I know you were like, I'm waiting for the shipment. As soon as they're in, we're scheduling it.
Exactly. But
I'm there.
Let me tell you, when these mics arrived, I felt like I got kicked in the stomach.
Really?
Yes.
You're nervous?
Nervous, but yet I live behind the camera.
Right.
This is not me being in front of the camera is just not something I typically do. So here I am going from telling the story from behind to then becoming the storyteller in front. So
But you're such a natural at it.
I appreciate that.
You really are
I
such a
appreciate
natural host, interviewer.
Yeah.
Like you really do.
Well,
I think so.
Thank you. But it's been a challenge.
And here we are.
I'm glad to hear the feedback has been positive. And I love feedback. So the whole thing is that I want the audience to feedback, and I want to hear from people and engage and just tell me what they like or what they want to see, because the show is geared towards for people as opposed to it is for me or my film business. Like it's not about that.
No, this is a separate entity.
It's separate altogether.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I want to know your hot tips.
Okay.
Okay. So hot tips coming from cinematographer.
Okay.
Directed to, I would say a lot of it would be planner, again, just because it's my perspective, but like, what do we need to keep in mind when it comes to video? Because we know with photo, it's about natural light, with, you know, everybody, it's about natural light, hair and makeup, like everybody needs natural light. But like, let's talk about hot tips from Corinne. When you're planning and organizing, whether you have a planner or not, but you have video, what do you need to think about? What do you need to keep in mind?
I think I love that you're asking this question.
It's a good one. I told you I had a lot.
I know.
I was prepared.
So a few things. Okay. Let's go with the reception to start, because a lot of the morning stuff is kind of out of everyone's control, and we're working with the elements that we're given.
And you're kind of just capturing like things as they're happening.
And we're capturing things as they happen. Where the reception is a more of a planned meal, sit down.
There's a program.
Yeah. So I think it's important, a few different things. One being natural light, number one. Ideally not placing a head table in front of a window, because that can really make it hard for us to expose our subjects. By subjects, I mean people. The other element to think of is the band placement and the podium placement.
Because often the podium is in front of the band stage. It happens a lot.
It happens a lot because it seems to be the best place for it to go.
Well, it's either there or it's beside the bar. And if the bar's open all night... Right?
You have people
around. You eat bartenders or barbacks or even guests who like can't wait that 5 minutes for their cocktail and will get up and go to the bar during a speech. So I find it often winds up on the other side of the room, near in and around by the band.
Sometimes even the band will sit on the stage.
Sometimes, yeah.
And I've gone over and gone, shoo. Like I have to shoo people away because they're in the background of the frame.
Yeah, you're photobombing.
And it's not, and I can't get rid of them. Like maybe like Photoshop for photographers can potentially take them out.
Right. But even like, that's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work. And so if you can avoid, and going back to like shooting luxury, if you can avoid these kind of things in the moment, then you're not going to have that in post-production to deal with. So podium placement's important. Audio is very important. Audio is probably the biggest key to video, and knowing how to set up your audio, and as well as talking with AV companies to make sure there is proper audio on site. And I think most planners that we work with do this.
Because you can actually plug into their...
Because we plug into systems, we speak with AV teams beforehand to make sure that it's fine for us to have an output.
Right.
And the biggest thing for video people to note, if they're listening, is that you need to be kind to AV. Like,
they're your support.
I don't know how, like, I don't know if this happens, but to walk up to an AV guy and say, or just start touching his equipment is going to get you in a lot of hot water.
Not a good idea. Hot tip.
That's a hot tip. Natushpa. Natushpa.
Yeah.
It's not your equipment. That's like them walking up and touching your camera. It's very much a no-go zone because they've also had to purchase this equipment, so you're not going to be hands-on. Number two would be podium lighting. So the sun is going to go down and the reception is going to get dark. Are you going to be providing light for the podium?
Right. Because most venues wouldn't.
Most venues wouldn't, and a lot of venues aren't equipped for that.
Right.
So our team carries lights that we bring to the wedding, and it gives us a certain look that we want.
Right.
So a lot of times we'll set them up regardless, but it is good if you can have that supportive light on the podium. It's very important.
Okay.
And the last thing is head table floral arrangements and candle arrangements. So a lot of times we have a head table that will have floral and candles that literally block the couple. And we get it because it's beautiful and it all needs to kind of align. However, typically in video and photo, we take reaction shots of the couple. And so if the candles and the flowers are too high, we're not able to get it. And then we're trying to get it all these different places where we're able to see the couple. Right. So a lot of times I've approached the planner and said, can we remove or shift some flowers and candles because we can't see the couple. Like she might be crying, we can't see her. Right. And the idea is we stay removed. So we really want to be as far back as possible. And we don't stealth mode. We don't want to be, kind of up in their face. Yeah. So I think those are some pretty key pieces of advice.
Those are good hot tips.
Yeah.
Okay. Take note. So we've gone through our 12-hour long day in 40-degree weather. It's lots of gear. It's heavy. You're tired. Let's talk about your rest and restore.
Rest and restore.
So I want to know, your job is very labor intensive. Like we're on our feet, but you're on your feet and you're also lugging around like really heavy equipment all day long. And we're often in the elements. We don't have access to sit, take a break, have a snack, protein shake. So I'm curious, like what do you do to kind of rest and restore and, to help get through the madness of our wedding seasons?
This is a good question. So I think my situation's a little bit different in the fact that I don't have kids. So I have the opportunity to do a little...
To sleep in the next day?
Do a little bit more of the resting.
Jealous about that. Not going to lie.
But like I feel it the day after a wedding.
Yeah. The hangover. We call it the wedding hangover.
And what really sets it off for me specifically is the dehydration.
Yeah.
Because we just aren't able to drink. It's just not possible. And I'm carrying like cameras and Ronins and that kind of stuff. So I do definitely feel it. So what works for me and what happens is typically I will... Something actually people don't really know about me is that I'm a sports gal.
I know that about you, and I love that. We have a mutual love of both of our favorite sport. We both love to box.
Which I've talked about a few times actually in a few episodes.
It's the best. It's such a good way to get out.
It is.
Yeah. But yeah,
it's a good workout, and it also just releases any of that like stress or anything that if you use it that way, it'll work for you that way.
Yeah. A 19-hour day is a realistic day for me and my team on a tent wedding. Wow. And we do sleep for 3 hours and then we're back for tear down, right? Yeah. So like that wedding hangover is days long and it is so important. And like as a mom, we're put ourselves last. So it's very hard to find that time, but it's so important. Yeah. So now is the time of year where we can all like, you see it on Insta stories, people are posting, they're like having lunch dates and at the spa and this and that. And I'm like so happy to see that people are taking some time to do whatever it is that they do. So one of my questions, because I'm always outside, is how do you deal with the elements and your equipment? Like, I have so many questions about it, not just rain, but also like if it's 45 degrees outside and it's super humid and then you go inside to like a house that's got the air conditioning going cranked, which we love, but is there condensation? Like how does that affect your gear? I had one photographer tell me that she puts her stuff out to climatize when it's hot like that. So like how does that, because it's expensive, like you got to take care of it.
It's true. And that is definitely a thing. That is a good question. So yeah, if it's raining, like it's to the point where if I had to, so typically if it's raining, ceremonies aren't going to happen outside. However,
it's typically
some people are hell-bent on having the ceremony outside.
Yes.
If that was the situation, I have umbrellas in my car and I would put an umbrella, literally tape it to a tripod.
One more thing to attach to your body. Okay.
And that's just knowing that element could happen.
Right.
And so that's something important to know. When it comes to heat, these cameras can get condensation if you're going from very cold out to very hot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have up to 5 cameras plus what our staff have, like what the guys have. Right. So we have like we could even have
Contingencies,
7
kind of,
cameras on site that day. So it's kind of like if something, usually what happens is the condensation clears up pretty quick.
Okay.
Where you're not in a situation where you really need something.
Right.
So that's usually fine. But if there is a situation, at least we have more cameras and lenses that we can switch things up.
Right.
So, I mean, my rule of thumb is you need backup for your backup.
Always.
I mean, you need backup cameras, you need backup
People,
everything,
everything.
like audio backup.
There's only one day. There's only one wedding day.
Exactly.
And we've talked about this a lot, like the pressure of our industry and kind of the weight we wear by, you know, having that on our shoulders because we want it to be perfect for our clients. But we're also very aware that like she's walking down the aisle once. There's no do-over, right?
Exactly.
We can't be like, wait, the camera wasn't on. Double back, do that again. You can't do that. Exactly. So like there is a lot of, and the backups to backups to backups, I guess kind of help the peace of mind to know that you're prepared, right?
And I think that plays in a little bit with the budget factor because if you're going to be showing up to a wedding and you're going to have all these backups and you're going to have audio backups, and that likely means you've been in the industry a little bit longer and you have more experience. Right. And so there's not going to be as many glitches on your wedding day. Right. So when you are paying a higher premium for your wedding film, it's most likely it's because of those factors.
Right. It's the experience.
It's the experience, and they're going to know what to do if something does come up. Right. So.
Yeah. Okay, one more question. One last question. And it's not going to be a question for your future guests because you're going to have that. My question is, what's your favorite part of a wedding day to film? Like, do you have a part that just like you love it to every wedding? You're just like, oh, I love this part.
That's a good question. There's a few different parts, and it's funny because sometimes you're in the moment, and so you're I'm like zoned in, and you're worried a little bit more about shots than you are so much about what's happening. Yeah. However, we had one this year, and I thought this was the cutest thing. So the bride, instead of it being, you know, father-daughter dance, which they did, she surprised her mom with a dance.
Oh, I love that.
And what I love about that is, like, if you think about it, and I love dads, and I loved my father, but when you do a walk down the aisle and a father-daughter dance, your mom kind of doesn't get anything. I mean, she's getting ready with you in the morning, and like
she gets to zip up the dress.
She gets to do the dress, but like, where's her moment? And so when she pulled her in, and the two of them were just like hugging and crying, and like I was like very emotional at that moment. And I was like, this is really sweet.
That's special.
This is a really cute idea. So that was kind of a neat thing to see. And then a lot of it for us is mechanics, and it really comes to the editing portion, where
that's
like,
what gets
I get goosebumps,
you get excited,
and I get emotional when I get to bring the emotion that actually happened. But like, I'm in the zone at this point, so I'm not crying because the groom is tearing up. But when I get into the editing and I can put in the right music with that and like build up this whole moment, then that's when the feeling comes, and like I literally get the goosebumps, and that's how I know a film's ready to go out, is when I'm feeling it.
Okay. Yeah. It's good. Okay, I have one more question. I lied.
Okay.
What's your favorite movie?
Oh, this is hard.
Not a wedding movie, because that would be so hard. It's just like asking me like, who's your favorite couple? It'd be impossible. But like, what's your favorite? Like, do you have a favorite movie?
It depends what season. I mean, Elf is my favorite Christmas movie.
It's a good one. It's a good one. It's Christmas time, so okay.
That's a good question. And it's really funny. You know what's really funny is that a lot of times when people are in cinema or they're filmmakers, they're obsessed with movies and cinema. Right. I do not fall into this category.
You do not? Okay. All right.
What I watch when I watch movies is editing. I understand shots.
So that's where that aha moment to open the editing studio back in the Live Nation days, that spark really was true to.
It's very true.
Yeah. Yeah. Where you were going.
It's more about, like I'll see a shot and I'll be like, that shot doesn't make any sense. And I look at movies a completely different way now.
Totally.
Than I used to. I still enjoy them. Yeah. But when I see clever editing or something that I was like, that's genius.
What would be clever editing? So much for one more question. What would be clever editing?
Like something like Atomic Blonde. Have you seen that one with Charlize Theron? Clever.
It's clever? Okay, I'm going to have to watch it. It's genius.
But I don't have a movie theater of DVDs that I'm obsessed with.
Your business and I'm entrepreneurial books instead.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So
you have to write me a list of books.
I like Wedding Crashers.
It's a good one.
It's actually really cleverly edited as well.
Is it? Yeah. Okay, well now when I rewatch it, I'm gonna be texting you. I just found a clever edit.
That's true.
Okay, amazing. Well, thanks for letting me be here.
Thank you for coming and being a guest host. I feel you did an amazing job.
Thank you. I feel very privileged.
You're very natural at this.
And I'll come back anytime.
For sure.
For
this is
questions or answers. I love to talk, as most people know.
Yeah.
But this was amazing. Got to know a little bit more about you, your business. Mm-hmm. I am a huge fan, and I think the podcast is amazing. And what you guys are doing, what you are doing, is really uniting our community.
I hope so,
and I hope it will reach further. I do. I hope you'll get cross Canada or US, and that people will start to feel that unity, because I think it's needed. There's really no other platform for us. So, well done.
Well,
thanks for having me.
I'm excited for you to come back. Thank you for coming in and asking me some questions about what we do.
A whole page
video.
worth.
You have a whole page worth here.
I prepped, guys. I was ready. Cheers to that.
Cheers. Thanks you
for
so
having
much.
Me. Cheers.
All right, guys, that is it for episode number 25 with yours truly, Corinne McDonald Films. I hope you learned a little bit. We talked video, we talked podcast, and we even talked about how I got into the industry. So hopefully there were some takeaways. Season 1 is officially wrapped. Season 2 is beginning January 8th, 2020. So make sure you mark your calendars or hit subscribe so you don't miss it. As always, guys, have an amazing, amazing holiday with your friends and family. Please stay safe, and we'll see you again January 8th, 2020 for our next episode of Season 2 of the VIP Collective.